So I've done National Novel Writing Month for 8 years, and here's how it went. Now, if you don't know what National Novel Writing Month is, it is a month where you try to write 50,000 words in 30 days. And it's in the month of November, and you just try to write as much as you can. The goal is to get words on the page. Don't worry about it being perfect. Don't worry about it being good even. Just write as much as you can. So the first year I did it was 2012. I started a project that I'd been mulling over in my head for a couple of years, and I decided I would just go for it with this one. And I actually wrote 50,000 words on top of the 30,000 words I had already written for this project. My friend Jessica told me about it, and it blew my mind. So here's how it went. So for the beginning of the month, I did really well, and I was pretty consistent for most of the time, getting almost exactly where I wanted to be every day. Now, I was just starting high school, so I had a lot of time on my hands, and I'm not exactly surprised that it went that way. The second year, I wrote a book called Subject Number 7. I wasn't doing the best mentally, and this book actually really got me through in a way that therapy to that point hadn't, because I was so therapy resistant. As you can see, one of those days I caught up a lot, and I actually ended up writing over 5,000 words in a single day. And I actually remember the day that it happened. I was sitting by my locker and I had a bunch of free periods, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote until I thought my head was going to explode, or until it felt like it was going to stop exploding. The third year, I wrote a book called Along Came Terry, and this was one of my favorite concepts. It kind of took mental health issues and it personified them. So there were species of demon that actually represented mental health issues. And that year was also a pretty consistent year. I wrote pretty much exactly on the goal, which is 1,667 words per day. I was really, really proud of this year, but it's nothing compared to this year. Now, this is a pile of garbage that I took a photo of. This year, I took every novel that I had written in the past 3 years, and I wanted to finish them all, because 50,000 words just wasn't cutting it for finishing these novels. And that year, I started off writing almost more than 3,000 words every single day for the first 8 days, and even up to the 13th day. I plateaued a bit once I got there. I took some days off and finished a day early. And I was happy with that year, but it doesn't really feel like National Novel Writing Month if you're not writing every single year. The next year, it was my first year of college, and this book really represented what I was going through in my mental health. There was a main character named Mark who was trying to take himself out, but supernatural forces got in the way every single time. So it was kind of a hopeful book for me to write. That year was my most difficult. I was below the curve until I was maybe 10,000 words behind schedule, and I tried to catch myself up in these giant bursts. There's 4 days where I wrote 3,000 words a day, but it doesn't even come close to the 2 days I wrote over 7,000 words in the library, sitting under one of their tables, and the last day where I climbed under my boyfriend's bed. It was college, so they had those lofted beds, and I put a sheet over it because I had a massive migraine. I crawled into it like a nook, and I just sat there writing for hours until we had to drive my friend to the airport, and I actually finished National Novel Writing Month that year, sitting in the back of my own car in the Newark airport. The next year I wrote a book called Here We Go Again. That one I had a bit of a better handle on. I kept mostly to my goals, but there were so many days where I had just 0 words over and over and over again as I took up my tutoring job, tutoring the computer science students in my college, and I had to just sit down and crank out some days, some 3,000 word days, but it was nothing like the year before. I actually graduated 1 year early from college, so this was my senior year of college, writing Better Late Than Dead, which had the most storylines I'd ever tried to write in a novel, and that year was abysmal. I've got 7 days where I wrote absolutely nothing, and so many more days than that where I didn't even hit 1,000 words. So much so to the point where on the last day, I sat in my apartment with the person I was dating at the time, and we were both trying to do National Novel Writing Month, and I wrote almost 10,000 words that day to finish, and then I went and I got belligerently drunk at my other friend's house because they would have these Friday night parties where people would just sit around and peer pressure each other into practical unconsciousness. Great people. But yeah, I had a blast on that last day. The person I was doing it with actually did way better than I did with bulk writing. They wouldn't write anything during the week, and then on the last day of the weekend, they would write like 4,000 words every day of the weekend, or like 10,000 words on the last day. And it was a sight to behold, let me tell you. 2019 was my first year in the workforce, and sad to say, I started but quit National Novel Writing Month after about 3 days. They changed the website, I was depressed, and I just told myself, it's not happening. They've ruined it. I really blamed it on them for not being able to do it that year, but it was definitely more of a me thing. 2020, I also didn't do National Novel Writing Month. But that year I did write 38,000 words for the book that I would eventually do for the 2022 National Novel Writing Month. This year, I mean, you guys all know, you know by now, we all know that was the year where we either got shit done or we didn't do anything at all. And for me, I didn't do anything at all. That is why the next year was kind of a triumphant return for me. I was sick of not writing. I was sick of writing slow. And I started writing a novel called Modern Vampires. It was a short story collective. And I mean, I loved it. I got to write so many different characters, so many different ways. And that year, it was every single day, almost exactly the number that I had to write. No real spikes, nothing like that, just pure sitting down at the computer every day, looking forward to writing. It brought me back to exactly what I wanted to do, and it was one of the most fun years I ever had. But I didn't feel as satisfied as I thought I would actually getting it done. I don't know why, maybe it's because I was so on track, but that year, some of the spark was still gone from it. Maybe it's because I lost my streak, but I didn't feel as proud of myself as I had other years. Maybe because it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. The next year, I wrote my memoir project, The Maiden, the Nymph, and the Hag. That's actually what this channel is named after. This one was the most difficult, not in terms of how long it took me to actually get the words on the page, but in terms of what I was actually writing. Because I made the mistake of taking every bad thing I'd ever done or any bad thing that had ever happened to me, and I thought that's what made a story good, but going back and editing, there were so many places where it could have used the burst of positivity and that spark of hope. Because if you just read the worst things that have ever happened to somebody in their life, it's not an enjoyable story to read. It doesn't tell you anything. It just says, hey, this person went through shit, they felt like shit, they behaved like shit. Did you have fun? No, I didn't have fun reading that because they didn't have fun writing it and they didn't have fun living it. So this one was the one that got the most edits. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I actually finished a couple of days early. I finished on the 26th, which was crazy. Because when you do start writing things from memory and trying to write them in a creative way, you're not drawing the emotions and the words out of someone that doesn't exist. You're just writing from what's already inside of you. So it tends to go a lot more quickly, and when you hit a streak, here I got to like 5,500 words, you just want to keep going because it's your story and you want to tell it. So that is the end of my National Novel Writing Month journey. I would recommend it for anybody who gets so caught up in writing the perfect words. If you've ever struggled with just getting your words on the page, telling a story that you want to tell, or just you want to do something with some consistency, November and April are when they do National Novel Writing Month. I always do it in November, but I suggest it for anybody who wants to write, anybody that's had any aspirations of writing. This will be the thing that gets you off your ass. It might not be the thing that gets you to write the words that get published, but it will give you the stuff that you need to edit that could one day become published. That's why they jokingly call December National Editing Month. So I hope you enjoyed this. This was my story. Those were my stats. If you want to do National Novel Writing Month and you want advice on how to do it, feel free to leave a comment and I can share what worked for me. Thank you for watching. If you like this, feel free to like this and have a great day. Subscribe if you want more of me.